Morning light poured softly through the stained glass windows of St. Michael's Church in Quezon City, painting the old wooden pews with hues of red, blue, and gold. Father Miguel Santos, a 22-year-old priest, stood silently before the altar, his hands clasped together, whispering a prayer of gratitude. The church was empty except for the gentle sound of doves fluttering near the open doors. As he stepped toward the small choir area, he took a deep breath and began to sing. His voice rose with purity and strength, filling the vast space with emotion so deep it seemed to touch heaven itself. Each note carried the weight of his journey, the poverty, the loneliness, and the unwavering faith that had guided him since childhood. Unbeknownst to him, Sister Angela stood at the back, recording the moment on her phone, her eyes shining with pride and awe. When he finished, his last note echoed through the church like a prayer answered. Sister Angela approached him slowly and said, "The world needs to hear this voice, Father Miguel." He smiled humbly, clutching his rosary, unsure of what destiny awaited him. Outside, the city was waking up, jeepneys honking, street vendors calling, children laughing, yet inside that small church, a miracle had already begun. The song of a young priest was about to travel far beyond Quezon City, touching hearts across the world. The sound of the plane engines roared as Father Miguel sat quietly by the window, his fingers wrapped tightly around his rosary. It was his first time leaving the Philippines, and the weight of what lay ahead pressed on his heart. The soft hum of the cabin couldn't drown out the mixture of fear and faith swirling within him. He closed his eyes and whispered a short prayer, "Lord, let my voice serve you wherever I go." Images of his small church in Quezon City flashed through his mind, the smiling faces of his parishioners, the ringing of church bells, the laughter of children after Sunday Massachusetts beside him. Sister Angela gave a reassuring nod, sensing his nerves. "This is God's plan," she said softly. As the plane soared above the clouds, Father Miguel gazed at the endless sky, feeling both tiny and infinite all at once. The city lights of Manila faded beneath the horizon, replaced by a blanket of stars that seemed to guide him forward. In his heart, he wasn't just a contestant heading to America's Got Talent, he was a messenger of hope carrying the spirit of every Filipino who had ever dreamed beyond their borders. The plane drifted higher, and for the first time, Father Miguel smiled, realizing that faith had already taken flight long before he did. The bright lights of America's Got Talent stage felt overwhelming as Father Miguel stepped forward, his priest robe gently swaying with each nervous breath. The audience murmured curiously, unsure of what to expect from the young Filipino priest standing before them. Terry Cruz greeted him warmly, his booming voice echoing through the hall. "Welcome, Father. What brings you here tonight?" Miguel smiled softly and replied, "I came to sing for God, and for my country, the Philippines." The crowd erupted in supportive cheers, and a small smile formed on Simon Cowell's face, intrigued. As the music began, the first soft piano notes filled the air. Father Miguel closed his eyes, letting the song rise from his soul. His voice, pure and heartfelt, carried across the silent audience, each lyric echoing with devotion and emotion. The judges leaned forward, Sofia Vergara covered her mouth, her eyes glistening. The camera zoomed in as tears streamed down faces in the crowd, many holding small Philippine flags. Every note seemed to lift the entire room higher, as if heaven itself was listening. When the final word left his lips, silence filled the hall, the kind of silence that follows something divine. Then, suddenly, the room exploded with applause. Simon slowly stood and said, "That was heavenly." Father Miguel bowed deeply, tears in his eyes, his voice trembling as he whispered, "To God be the glory." It was more than an audition, it was a moment of faith meeting destiny. The final note lingered in the air, shimmering like light through stained glass. For a few breathtaking seconds, the entire theater stood frozen, no claps, no words, just the echo of Father Miguel's voice hanging like a prayer. Then, as if breaking a spell, the audience erupted into applause. People stood on their feet, cheering, crying, waving their hands in the air. Sofia Vergara wiped away tears, shaking her head in disbelief. "That was beyond beautiful," she whispered. Heidi Klum clasped her hands together, her eyes filled with emotion. Even Simon Cowell, known for his stoic expression, leaned forward and said softly, Father Miguel, I don't know if I've ever heard something so pure. You didn't just sing, you made us feel something sacred. The golden stage lights glowed behind him, casting a soft halo around his figure as if heaven itself had joined the show. Confetti began to fall, shimmering like tiny blessings raining down from above. Miguel looked up, his lips trembling in gratitude. He pressed his hands together in prayer, overwhelmed by the moment. Terry Crews rushed to the stage, shouting, That's what AGT is all about, heart, faith, and soul. The crowd's chant of Philippines, Philippines filled the theater, their voices uniting with pride. Father Miguel smiled through his tears, knowing that this wasn't just his victory, it was the triumph of every Filipino who believed that faith and music could touch the world. Back in Quezon City, the small community around St. Michael's Church gathered in the courtyard, their eyes fixed on a flickering television set. The night sky glowed softly as hundreds of people, young and old, leaned forward, waiting to see their beloved Father Miguel on screen. When his golden buzzer moment replayed, the crowd erupted into cheers that echoed through the narrow streets. Children waved small Philippine flags, women clasped their hands in prayer, and even jeepney drivers parked nearby to watch. Inside her modest home, Lola Remedios, Miguel's grandmother, sat quietly on her wooden chair, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. He sang for all of us, she whispered, her voice trembling with pride. Sister Angela, standing beside her, smiled through her own tears and replied, The world finally heard what we've always known, his voice is a gift from God. As the TV showed confetti falling around Father Miguel, the church bells began to ring across the city, each toll a symbol of victory and faith. Neighbors hugged one another, their joy uniting them beyond words. The camera panned back to Father Miguel's humble church, now glowing with candles and light, as if the whole building was alive with celebration. For the people of Quezon City, it wasn't just about a win on a global stage, it was proof that even the quietest voices, when guided by faith and love, could echo across the world. The grand stage of America's Got Talent shimmered in gold as Father Miguel returned for the semifinals. The audience roared with excitement, waving Philippine flags and holding signs that read, Faith wins, and, from Quezon City to the world. Miguel stood at the center, calm yet emotional, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and determination. The lights dimmed, and a single spotlight shone down on him. He began to sing, his voice softer now, more intimate, carrying the weight of every prayer, every dream, every heart that believed in him. The melody rose gently, wrapping the entire hall in reverence. People in the crowd closed their eyes, some crying, others whispering prayers under their breath. Simon Cowell leaned forward, visibly moved, and when the final note soared, he stood up and said, You proved tonight that faith can move not just mountains, but hearts. The audience erupted in thunderous applause as golden lights formed a glowing cross behind Father Miguel, illuminating his figure like a divine vision. Terry Crews rushed to him, shouting over the cheers, You've just made history for the Philippines. Miguel bowed deeply, tears glistening on his cheeks. To God be the glory, he whispered. The confetti rained down again, blending with the golden lights, a heavenly moment that marked the victory of faith, humility, and hope. In that instant, Father Miguel wasn't just a contestant, he became a symbol of light for millions around the world.